Hello again to my 7 subscribers. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for coming. Today's video won't be too deep because if you watched my last vlog, you're probably aware of just how bad the audio quality was there. And I really need to prioritize fixing that if this format is going to be a thing. As well as the lighting. I really haven't got that sorted out yet, but we're working on it. The problem with the audio was that I was using a cardioid mic plugged into the camera, but because I had a fixed focus lens that I was using to shoot video, it meant that the camera had to be fairly far back in order to capture everything, and that meant that the mic was getting a lot of the nat sound and room echo. So I've got this lapel hooked up right now to see if that's any better, and if that works, great. If not, we'll have to look at investing in a more robust and more expensive audio system. But without further ado, let's begin today's train of thought. Okay, so in this video we are going to talk about something that piqued my interest online a few days ago. Last week, a US-based travel advice blog called Asher and Lyric published a safety ranking for LGBT plus travelers in 150 countries. The ranking was done by calculating 9 legal parameters from protection of LGBT identities to the criminalization thereof, from equality in marriage and adoption to the prohibition on public displays of affection, as well as other issues. The ranking also claims to take into consideration local cultures and attitudes which may not be reflected in the law, and it acknowledges that generally unsafe countries may have LGBT-friendly spaces all the same. By all accounts, this was an impressive and comprehensive undertaking, though maybe I am biased because at least one of their sources is actually a research report that I worked on last year with a group of amazing activists. But Asher and Lyric do represent two halves of a heterosexual married couple, and as good as their intentions may be, whenever straight white Americans decide to rank other countries, it always warrants a closer look. Okay, so let's quickly take a look at the top 20 safest countries per the Asher and Lyric Index. Canada and the Netherlands rank 1 and 2 respectively, which to me checks out. But I haven't been to either of those countries, so do leave a comment about your experiences there. Then in third place is Sweden. Now, I have been to Sweden, and all I can say is that there were rainbow flags everywhere, and the Modern Art Museum in Stockholm had some very inclusive toilets. Then we have Malta, Portugal, and Belgium, which makes sense. Malta is one of the few countries in the world to have banned non-consensual surgeries on intersex newborns, though that is likely not going to impact most tourists, while Portugal ranked highly on the ILGA-Europe map, and Belgium is the headquarters of ILGA-Europe. Belgium also has a Deputy Prime Minister, Dr. Petra de Sutter, who is a trans woman. The United Kingdom comes in at 7th. And I suppose this is accurate. I mean, London and Manchester have some of the biggest LGBT communities in Europe, but I can't help but feel, based on the rising transphobic rhetoric in the media by many politicians and so-called feminists, that some LGBT people, specifically the T, in that country, might feel a little bit more unsafe than number 7 out of 150 would suggest. Don't get me wrong, I love the UK, I've travelled all over that country, but I suspect that if current trends continue, we'll see it 2 or 3 rungs down the line next year. Rushing quickly through the rest, we have Spain, Uruguay, Norway, France, Iceland, Denmark, Australia, and then Brazil. Now, this is another one that I'm not sure about. I mean, Brazil does have some decent LGBT protections, and Carnevale can be very queer, but I feel it may be a little high on the list given the current president Bolsonaro has made no secret of his homophobia, and Brazil regularly reports more murders of transgender women than any other country on the planet. If I'm wrong about Brazil, please do comment below. Then we have New Zealand, Austria, Finland, Ireland, and coming in at number 20, the United States. I'm glad to see the US at 20 because it is a solid LGBT-friendly destination, but Asher and Lyric have clearly acknowledged that their home country is, in some ways, problematic and has some difficult realities that it must contend with. And now I know I said that I would look at the top 20, but I have to cheat just a little bit and talk about my own home country coming in at number 21, South Africa. I'm fairly happy with South Africa's position. The country does undoubtedly have the most progressive legislation, and in many ways is one of the safest on the continent. There are multiple pride parades, and there is a significant industry catering to the pink dollar. But I have spoken to several LGBT migrants who came from other African countries, such as Zambia, who told me that they feel less safe in South Africa than their own home countries, which outright criminalize them. In short, our progressive laws do not necessarily translate into social acceptance. In my line of work, I have had to report on several LGBT hate crimes over the last few years. But I must add that the average tourist to South Africa is very unlikely to find themselves in the sorts of vulnerable positions that many poor, black, queer South Africans who suffer violence must live in daily. So, if you want to visit South Africa, I assure you, you will be fine. And now I want to briefly look at the 20 most dangerous countries for LGBT travelers, according to Asher and Lyric. Coming in at 130 out of 150, 20th from the bottom, is Algeria. Algeria is followed by Egypt, which is quite understandable given the rise in harassment, arrests, and repression of LGBT people in that country. Of course, Egypt does not expressly criminalize queer identities, but authorities often use other laws to justify their assaults. Then we have Morocco and the Maldives, two countries that I think could probably rank as slightly safer than Egypt, followed by Uganda, which has also been in the news in recent years for targeting LGBT people, and then Iran. At 136, we have the West Bank and Gaza. I think my channel is too young to be commenting on such geopolitically tense issues as Palestine, so I will move swiftly along to Sudan, Tanzania, Zambia, and Yemen. These four have definitely earned their spots near the bottom of this chart. Tanzania especially has been in the news for targeting LGBT people, and not just locals. A few years ago, a South African human rights lawyer was arrested, and earlier this year, a South African man tried to repatriate the body of his husband who had passed away in Tanzania, which caused a fair amount of political drama, given that the authorities there did not recognize him as the next of kin. I do want to delve more into this story when I make another video on the ethics and risks of choosing to go to a homophobic country and dealing with the consequences thereof, so do subscribe if you want to see that video. Now, in 141 and 142, we have the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. Now, of course, these are conservative nations, and of course they do criminalize queer identities. But I'm not sure they belong this far down on the list, because these two countries are also major economic and transport hubs. A significant chunk of international travel between Africa, Europe, and Asia passes through these two countries, and many of those travelers are going to be queer. I'm not denying that incidents have already happened, but by and large, I think authorities have other focuses as the 2022 FIFA World Cup approaches, and I don't know, I just wouldn't put them this far down the list. Then we have Myanmar, Jamaica, Oman, Malawi, and Malaysia, followed by Saudi Arabia and Nigeria in 149th and 150th place respectively, right at the bottom of this chart. But personally, I would have swapped these two around. As it stands, they are both not great for LGBT travelers, which is putting it very mildly, but Nigeria does have a thriving, albeit underground, queer scene, and as a federal state, the laws which criminalize homosexuality are applied differently from region to region. The death penalty is on the books in the northern states of Nigeria, but the death penalty is part of the law across all of Saudi Arabia. And to my knowledge, the local activist and LGBT movement is far more suppressed. So yes, I would have probably put Saudi Arabia at 150th rather than 149th. But again, I have not been to either of these two countries, and this is just my very subjective view on the matter. Please do let me know if I've got this completely wrong. Of course, there remains a question about whether ranking countries in this way is even useful. As I have already pointed out, the experiences of tourists coming to South Africa is usually very different from the lived realities of many South Africans. And even Asher and Lyric allude to the fact that their safety index cannot account for the full nuances of most of these countries. Does it really matter then whether Nigeria or Saudi Arabia is at the bottom of the chart? Is second place tangibly different from first? What meaningful difference is there between a country that ranks 50th and a country that ranks 60th or 70th? There are definitely countries that are safer to visit than others, but I worry that a strict numerical ranking can put people off visiting some perfectly lovely places while adopting a false sense of safety in others. And that is the top and bottom of the Asher and Lyric LGBT Travel Index. They also have a safety index for solo women travelers, in which South Africa ranks right at the bottom, which is where it belongs, if we're honest. But for now, that's the end of this video. The link to the 2021 Safety Index is below, so go check it out and see where your country falls. Be sure to come back and comment on whether you agree with your country's ranking or not, and tell me why. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, safe travels. Taste of Southern Africa liked my post. Who's Taste of Southern Africa? Oh. Wow, there's like a legit Instagram food and travel thing following me. It's amazing. Following them back.